name is Amy Hollahan. I'm the Deputy Director of Music Columbus. I know many of you in this room, so thank you for joining us. We're going to have a really informative conversation. But first, I wanted to make a few announcements about some events that we have that are finishing out our year. So this Sunday, we have our last Unheard showcase of the year. That is going to happen at Woodlands Tavern. So come on out. Here's some other musicians in our community that are going to be performing. It's free. Come on out. Starts at 1 o'clock, Olivia? Yes, 1 o'clock. So come hear some free music, support our community. And then next Thursday, October 10th, we have the rock star photographer Lynn Goldsmith coming out to talk with us at the Lincoln Theater. So if you're interested in photography and how to work with a photographer as a musician, it's going to be a really, really great night. She's got some books for sale that she's going to sign for us. And, come say hello, get to know this amazing, renowned photographer. So all of that information can be found on our website. Check us out, musiccolumbus.com. I feel like there is, the raffle for this evening. Some of the reasons some of you might have come across this event is because we are giving away 8 hours of recording time at Moonlight Audio. So if you registered and checked in with us and you stay till the end of the evening, we will pull the raffle at that time and make the announcement for who won. So do not leave early or you will not get the chance to take advantage of that opportunity. And then let me just make sure I'm not missing anything else. Yeah, that's it. So check out our website, check out our Instagram, keep following along with us, keep coming out to our events. Okay, now for the main event. I would like to welcome our hometown hip-hop hero, Rawls, and his esteemed mentor, Patricia Blair, founder of First Note Music Services, to the stage. They're going to educate us on all the things this evening. So I'm going to pass it over to Jay, and get those pens ready.
What's up, y'all? Okay, we got to try that again. What's up, y'all? How y'all feel? See, here's the thing. This is what I'll be talking about. First of all, raise your hand if you know everything there is to know about music publishing. Good. There should be no hands up, including mine. And so, as an artist from Columbus, Ohio, what up, fam? From Columbus, Ohio, like some of you all, right? Music publishing is a mystery. And so many people, you ask somebody about it and they say, what do you know? What do you know? Right? And so we have an event like this. This should be packed, right? But that's okay because you guys are going to get the knowledge. So clap it up for yourselves for being here. The first thing I want to do is talk about the person that I'm going to bring up, who is a good friend of mine. And I'm going to tell you how I met her and why she's so important. Her name is Pat Blair, and I'm going to bring Pat up in a second. But anybody ever heard of an artist named Mos Def? Talib Kweli? Okay, so I did some music for them way back in 1998. Y'all wasn't even born then, were you? Way back in 1998, right? And with a small label called Rawkus Records. And so Rawkus was eventually bought up by a big conglomerate, MCA Records, and that's Universal Music Group. And I get a call one day, and it's Pat Blair. And she's like, hey, do you know that you're not getting the publishing you're supposed to be getting? Whoa, that was a weight dropped on me because I thought I knew what I was doing. And I learned very quickly that I didn't. And so what I always vowed from there was to help as many people as I could try to learn and understand music publishing, royalties, and copyrights. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up my good friend, Miss Pat Blair. Clap it up for her. And we are going to have a conversation, and you should be taking a lot of notes. A lot of notes. You should act like you're back in school taking notes, all right? And then we're going to start out. We're going to have Pat talk a little bit about her career, just briefly. Then we're going to talk about publishing, some different things. We got our notes here. And then we're going to open it up for questions. Is that cool? All right? All right, let's get it started. Okay. Well, first of all, is your mic on?
Can anybody hear me? Oh.
They can hear you, so we're in good shape. Okay, well, welcome, Pat. Thank you so much. I invited you here because I love Columbus, and I want my people here to learn a little bit about publishing, copyrights, and royalties. Now, I'm blessed. I can pick up the phone and call you when I have questions. And you have actually spoken in some of my classes and talked to some of my students. So I'm very blessed. And so I want to share with them, first of all, a little bit about your history and just to give them context of why you're even here. So if you don't mind, just kind of walk us through briefly just a little bit of your career, as brief as you can, because I know, I know.
It's been long.
Go for it.
I'll keep it short.
Okay.
Well, I've basically worked in all kinds of areas of music publishing. I've worked for small record labels. I've worked for small independent music publishers. I've worked with major labels, Universal Music Group. I've worked with major music publishers, Warner Music Group. So I've kind of seen the behind the scenes of all that you could imagine on the music publishing side of life. When I worked for Universal, I was there for 20 years, and I saw a lot of writers that weren't really getting their fair share. They weren't being cheated, but they weren't getting their fair share because they didn't know what to ask for. And so when I left Universal, I decided that was what I was going to spend my time doing, helping artists, helping composers get the money they were entitled to. And that's what's really brought me here, because that's what I care about.
If you don't mind, tell them some of those companies, if you don't mind.
Okay,
start with K-Tel.
I worked for Scotty Brothers Entertainment. That was Survivor and Weird Al Yankovic. I worked for, I worked for Warner Music Group. I worked for Motown for a minute. I worked for MCA Records. Where else have I been? All sorts of small places.
Experience. That's what I wanted you to understand. The experience is on this stage. Okay, excellent. So, we talked a little bit, and we've been talking this whole time, so I'm just going to kind of throw some things out there. You talked about understanding publishing and the reason it's important. And she said to me just when we were upstairs, she said, I tell artists, do you want to eat? Do you want to pay your rent or your mortgage? That's where your money comes from. That's where a lot of your money comes from, right? And so tell me just specifically why you said here, where's my money? AKA beating the bushes for gravy. Like, why is that important in your opinion?
Well, I think the creative side of life, creating music, is a gift and a treasure. Well, if you can't figure out how to monetize that, you're not going to be able to do that for very long. So, how are you going to do that? You have to understand where your money comes from and how to get it.
That's exactly, yeah. Okay, so we talked about, you said if you're serious about songwriting, and see, here's the thing I need you to understand, songwriting and publishing. You gotta understand what those things are. So we're gonna really talk about those, and well, she's gonna talk about them. But I want to ask you, Pat. You said if you're serious about songwriting, you must join a performing rights organization. Can you tell the audience, first of all, who knows what a performing rights organization is? Raise your hand if you know what they are. Okay, not a lot of hands, right? And you'll hear those termed as pros. Somebody will talk about a pro. So that's a performing rights organization. So if you don't mind, tell us about the pros.
Sure. A lot of us refer to them as the PROs, and right now there are 5 of them. 2 weeks ago there were 4, but now there's another new one. So, and I should say also, publishing in the United States is different from publishing in any other part of the world. So it's way more complicated, but it doesn't translate one for one into what's going on in the UK or France or China or Australia. We are way more complex. So The two basic PROs are ASCAP, and they have about 960,000 members right now. And BMI, they have about 900,000 members.
So that's your notes. ASCAP, BMI.
Yeah. So I think they're listed, maybe they're not listed on the sheet we handed out, but those are open to anybody who wants to join. Then there's a company called CSAC, which is significantly smaller and is invitation only. Forgive me, I forgot to gather how many members they have, but it's a much smaller organization and much more hands-on, and they make their reputation by saying, we're going to pay attention to you as a writer. Then there is something called GMR, which is Global Rights Management, and that's owned by Irving Azoff and has about 40 members, the likes of Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak, that kind of level of artists. So for most of us, that's nothing we're ever going to be invited to join. And I'm not sure we would want to, because they control such major artists. They think they can ask for anything they want. And so a lot of sync placements, companies will not place anything by GMR unless it's a song the director or producer absolutely has to have.
You just dropped something on them. You said sync placement. Do you want
Right.
to talk to them about what sync?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
But
So keep that in
basically,
mind.
Sync placement is what happens, how music gets into a film, gets used on television. So anyway, we'll get back to that. Then there's a brand new PRO, which is called All Track. They just popped up literally 2 weeks ago, and they're saying they're designed for independent creators and publishers. And I don't really know what they think they're going to add that is different or more wonderful. But that's the other problem, is there are now so many companies popping up that say they're going to collect your money that it's difficult to know which direction to go to. But anyway, one of the reasons why it's important to join a PRO is because that's where you get your first identification number, which is assigned to each writer, each publisher member, and it's a number that's recognized throughout the world. So when you start placing your songs or your songs start being used, you need to know that number that goes with you so that your income can start to be collected.
Excellent, excellent. And just in case, I don't know exactly what you have on your handouts, but a PRO collects royalties earned when a musical composition is publicly performed. So radio, TV, live performance, in-store music, things like that, okay? All right, excellent. And you really kind of already talked about the difference in the pros. So I want to talk a little bit about songwriting. We talked about it upstairs a little bit. When we talk about songwriting, who should get a share in songwriting? And let's compare and contrast that with who actually does get a share, right? So a little bit about songwriting.
Okay, so traditionally, songwriting should involve the person who wrote the music, or persons, and the person or persons who wrote the lyrics, if there are any lyrics. And that's what it really ought to be. However, and back in the early days, that's exactly what it was. Then along came people like Elvis Presley, and a performer you probably have never heard of, but a guy named Mel Tillis, who was big in country. And they started demanding a share of any song that they performed. And you may have heard the story that Elvis Presley wanted to record one of Dolly Parton's songs, and he demanded a share, and she said no. And Whitney Houston ended up recording that song. So good on Dolly. Anyway, so these two guys then kind of opened the way for other people to start asking for pieces of music as well. So then you had producers who traditionally were just paid a flat fee to do their work. Now they're coming in and saying, oh, I want to share. Then you had people who were DJs saying, I want a share. Then you started having, sometimes in bands, the person who wrote the music decided he wanted to give everybody in the band, he or she wanted to give everybody in the band a share. So now you've got all kinds of people who actually didn't have anything to do with writing. It's not a great idea if you can avoid it, to be giving shares to all these extraneous folks, because when songs get placed in film, on TV, or used for various other purposes, usually the clearance time is very short. Everybody's in a rush. If they see that they have to go to 4 or 5 publishers to clear a song, they'll just go next. I just want a song where I go 1 place or 2 places that I know will respond to me. I can't be wandering around the countryside trying to find, Mr. Cheeks. Well, truly, and who is Mr. Cheeks anyway? I mean, he is a person, but the more people you divvy up the shares, there's also the more people who can say, no, I don't want this song used, and can then block the whole thing. And suppose you have an argument with your band and one band member is angry. They could mess up a marvelous thing for you because they won't license their share. So you want to keep that under control.
Pat, we didn't talk about it, but I'm going to ask you this anyway. Can you tell the audience about split sheets?
About?
Split sheets and metadata and their importance?
Oh, sure. Okay, well.
Because we're talking about songwriting.
Yeah, so once you've decided, it's been decided who has shares of the song, you need to somehow set that down in writing in some way. People call them split sheets. It can be as simple as a piece of paper that says, X, Y, and Z wrote this song, and here are the shares. And everybody agrees. It's really important. I know it messes with the creative process, but it's important to do it as soon as you can after the song is written or is settled as far as who has shares. The reason why is because when nothing's happening with the song, everybody's fine with equal shares or whatever you've decided. As soon as something starts to happen with that song, and I can tell you I've seen it a zillion times, all of a sudden, wait, I didn't write 10% of that. I wrote 50%. And then you have an endless argument. And for example, on Eminem albums or 50 Cent albums, it can take up to 2 or 3 years to get those albums licensed because nobody agrees to the shares anymore. They've all changed their mind, and nobody initially took the time to get everyone to agree to what the shares were and put it down on paper.
Amazing. Yes. Thank you so much. I hope you're writing your questions down. We will take questions near the end. I want to.
Let me say one more thing about that. It's also important to make sure people use what we refer to as their government names, which means, if you're paying taxes, what name do you do it under? I can't tell you how many songs I've worked on where, it'll say, Mr. Ears, Big Mama, Furry Bunny. And, you can't register songs under that unless sometimes you can look up online and go, who is Furry Bunny? But often you can't. And if you don't know who all the writers are, really, you can't register the song. So you're kind of stuck. So it's important to get people's government names, get their contact information, so that suppose someone comes to you and says, I really want to use this song, you can go, okay, you can reach, Furry Bunny at this email, and you can reach this person here and this person there.
So that's important. So don't just know their real cool hip hop hippity hop name or their DJ name. You if you're working with someone, get their government name. Excellent. Now we talked about songwriting and that side of it. Can we talk briefly about publishing?
Sure.
And what is, because you hear that term often, but I don't think people quite understand, what does a publisher do and what is publishing?
Okay, so a musical composition, we basically think of it as having two halves. One half belongs to the writers, and one half belongs to the publishers. One of the ways, just for a tiny bit of history, that got set up is there were concerns. In the early days, a writer would want money, and they'd sell their entire interest in a song for $100. And then they have no rights to it whatsoever. They cannot earn any money. So then they set up the convention of, let's have a writer share that theoretically, in the olden days, cannot be sold. That belongs to the writer. It belongs to their heirs. They're going to get that money for the end of time, as long as the song's earning money. In the last maybe 10 years, writers have started being able to sell their writer's interest as well. For example, one of my clients bought part of the John Hornsby catalog, who is the brother of Bruce Hornsby, and they bought not only John's publishing, they bought his writer interest as well. So on a song like Mandolin Rain, John Hornsby no longer gets a penny. I don't know if that was a great deal for him, but anyway, wow. My client's happy. So the publishing share was supposed to be the share that a writer could sell for either they needed money and wanted an advance, or they needed somebody who could take care of all the back office details of publishing. Because there are a lot of back office details that need to be taken care of in order to track down the money that a song earns. And a lot of writers just want to do their creative thing. They don't want to be filling out spreadsheets and seeing if they got the money for this streaming or that streaming. In addition, they may not be able to do the kind of deals that a publisher can do, finding placements, getting your song on a syndicated TV show. You as just somebody out here in Ohio may not have the contacts to do that. So a publisher should be able to do that for you. Sometimes publishers also invest money in promoting your tours, promoting your songs, although that doesn't happen as often now as it used to. They do what's called administration. And I don't know if I'm skipping ahead, but one type of deal you can do is an administrative deal, where a publisher simply says, I will take care of your catalog, I'll collect your money for you, I'll try to get you placements, and I'll do that for X percentage. Might be 15% of the income, depending on what they're doing. Some will take 50% of your income to do a placement. Some will take 50% to take care of your stuff. But the standard, I would say, is 15 to 20%. I've also seen 10%. But administration, you retain the ownership of your publishing. They're simply taking care of it for you. And the deals are typically 3 to 5 years. And then after that, you can either renew your deal if they're still interested, or you can go find somebody else. You can also do a co-publishing and administration deal where you sell half your publishing or some share of your publishing to a publisher. So now they are co-publishers with you, and they also administer and will charge you a percentage. Or you can sell the entire share of your publishing to a publisher, in which case they'll collect your writer's share for you. And I should back up and say, A PRO will pay the writer's income directly to the writer. It does not go to the publisher. But all the other kinds of income that are possible will go to the publisher, and the publisher will then pay the writer.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. Me as an artist, can I own my own publishing? Can I own my own publishing?
Yes.
Can I be a publisher?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
And I should say, if you are an ASCAP affiliated writer, as a writer, you cannot collect the publishing money that you're entitled to. You have to have a publishing company. BMI allows the writers to collect publishing income without setting up a publishing company. I will say if you're an active composer, you want a publishing company. Because if you look on the PROs, you'll see if you look up a writer, they don't provide any writer contact information. If you look up a publishing company, you'll see they provide contact information. So if you decide you're not going to have a publishing company, nobody knows how to reach you if they want to use your song.
Excellent point. We've got a lot of budding writers and maybe future publishers out here. When should they register their work with a PRO?
Oh, okay. Well, I feel that you should register it as soon as you know what the splits are. Don't wait till it's going to be released. I'll tell you, in my experience, the first entity or individual to register a song with a PRO kind of controls the information. So if somebody else comes up and says, let's say you've claimed 75%, and someone else comes up and says, I have 50%, the PRO has to go to you and get you to release 25%. So I am always in a hurry to get songs registered. At the same time, if you don't have complete information, I would advise against registering, because let's say this is reality. I've seen songs where there's 5 different writers. None of them knows what each other's splits are. So the song gets registered 5 times. Okay, all that does is hold up your money. In addition, if they think they know who the writers are, let's say you have a name like mine, which is Pat Blair. There are a lot of people that are named Pat Blair, I'll tell you, because I get a lot of their emails. But, if you're trying to register a song you co-wrote with me and you don't know which Pat Blair I am, you might very well sign up some other Pat Blair. Which is why the IPI number I mentioned early on is important, the interested party, because that specifically and uniquely says that is the Pat Blair you want.
Correct. Excellent. I work with a guy named John Robinson. So I have to have his IPI when we do that. Should you register your work with the U.S. Copyright Office? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm not a lawyer. Lawyers would say, yes, register everything. That can get really expensive if you are a prolific writer. Since it's about $65 a shot. Why do you want to register it with a copyright office? Well, if ever there's a question, if you think somebody has recorded your song and claimed it as their own, that's called infringement. And you cannot take someone to court or even start to take them to court if you haven't registered the song with the Copyright Office. So the Copyright Office has a rule that if you haven't registered the song before an infringement claim and or within 90 days of the initial release, you lose certain remedies, i.e. money. if you haven't done that registration. So, it's kind of a toss-up of, are you worried that somebody's going to copy your song and claim it as their own? And I would say, in my experience, most of the infringement claims never go to court. There's some type of settlement ahead of time. So yeah. I'm kind of like, save your money unless you've got tons of it.
All right. Excellent. So let's really get into the nitty gritty. We're going to talk about types of income and how you can make money from your publishing and from your songs. And so I don't know if you want to take them individually, but you want to start with mechanical royalties and talk about that?
Sure. And let's not forget to go back to sampling.
Okay. You want to do that now?
Oh, I could.
Go for it.
Okay. So there are two types of using other people's work that are happening quite frequently. And I should just, short side note, we call it sampling when an artist uses a piece of another artist's master on their master. There's also something called interpolation, when an artist replays a portion of another artist's musical composition within their own composition. So, but it's often just referred to as sampling. Back in 1992, I worked on the Mary J. Blige album, What's the 411? And that was actually one of the first examples of sampling that a major label had encountered. There was lots going on before that, but this was something major. We had no idea what to do, nor did the publishers. And initially, we did buyouts. Today, they realize that buyouts were not a great idea because you're missing out on future income. So today, sampled songs usually take a portion of the publishing of the new song. The new song is called a derivative work, something derived from an original work. So the writers and the owners of the work you sampled actually control the work within which you used their work. Was that too confusing?
Was that too confusing? Did you get that? So basically, let me see if I can try to. The writers and publishers of the song that was sampled controls the new hip hop or rock song or whatever that did the sampling.
And they have to agree that they like the new work. They can prevent the new work from being used. And B, they then have to agree, if they want to give a share of the new work to the writers of the new work. And they might say, you've used too much of my work. You can't have any piece of it, but you can release it. So sampling, although lots of people do it, is a good thing to stay away from because it's now become very expensive. If a major publisher or record company control the work that you sampled, they're going to charge you $2,000 just to consider whether or not they want to let you release the work. Never mind taking a share. That's before they even think about it. So it can be a very expensive proposition.
All right. Let's talk about types of income.
Right.
Yep. Mechanical royalties, if you want to talk to them about that.
Mechanical royalties are income that goes to the publisher and writer of a song for audio recordings. It comes on for physical product, for vinyl, CDs, 8 tracks for you old folks. I think that's me. Mechanical royalties also are paid for digital downloads where you've purchased the download. They are also payable for streaming.
Excellent. And can you explain the statutory rate and tell them what it
Okay,
is?
so Congress established what they refer to as a statutory rate, which is the base rate paid for sales of a recording or for streaming. For a digital download or a physical sale, the rate started years ago as 2 cents a unit for a song. It's now up to 12.4 cents a unit for a song that is under 5 minutes in length and over 5 minutes. Let me see. I've forgotten what. It's a per minute rate. It was the long song. What we refer to as a long song rate was generally set up for jazz recordings. Although nowadays it is possible to have pop recordings that are longer, but in the olden days, you didn't have anything longer than 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. What about print or lyric royalties?
Okay, that's usually a negotiated rate, and you're going to need to go to a print house that is in the business of selling print. Although now you can also get it, there are also companies that sell online. There isn't a set royalty for that. It's negotiated.
Performance royalty.
Okay. That, again, is collected by the PRO. Oh, and I should say, mechanical royalties for physical product will come to you from the record label. Mechanical royalties for digital product will come to you from whatever company is collecting from the digital service provider.
The DSP, which you've probably heard that term.
Yeah, so, right, so we're back on performance. Sorry, I was off in DSP land. So a performance royalty is for live public performance of a song. It could be, the guys up here on stage. It could be on television, could be outside of this country. It's in the film theaters, in the movie theaters. It's cable, it's radio, any place. Oh, it's in a club. It's what you hear if you're shopping in Target and they're playing music. All those places that play music available for the public to hear have to get a license from the PROs. And then based on the license, they divvy up the money they get from the songs that are played.
And I know we didn't have it on the paper, but I want you to tell them what an artist royalty is, please. An artist royalty.
Okay. That has nothing to do with what I do. It doesn't have to do with publishing. It's the income the artist receives on sales of the master. So whether it's a download, physical product, let's see what else. There's also a master use license for synchronization.
Yeah, and that's referred to as points. That's when people talk about points.
Well, yes, yeah. So a producer might get X points out of the artist's royalty for doing their job as a producer.
All right, and then back to the publishing world, synchronization or sync fees.
Okay, so when anybody wants to synchronize music with a visual, they need to get a synchronization license. So any music you're going to see on TV, in the films, there had to be a sync license for that. If not, somebody's going to sue. And so, again, the sync license has two aspects. One is for the master, and one is for the publishing. So the publisher is going to negotiate and collect the sync fee. And it could be anything from 10 cents to $100,000 or more, depending on what the song is.
Amazing. Now, all of these are types of income. I hope you guys have been writing these down. What about YouTube and the advertisements in YouTube?
Okay, so there's YouTube money when advertisements are linked together with videos. And there are companies that simply collect that advertising money.
Okay, we had talked about we're almost at the point with questions. That's where I want to get to. You got something else?
Oh, well, I should also say, I mentioned when we started that publishing in the United States is different from publishing outside the U.S. You can't collect publishing money in a foreign country unless you are based in that country. Hence, people have to have what's called a foreign sub-publisher or some agency that has a business in that company or in that country or territory that collect the money for you. So that's a whole other area of income.
I'm going to take a quick pivot. Can you tell us what First Note, your company, tell us what you do and
Sure.
what you guys do?
So a manager may come to me. An example would be Anderson .Paak's manager came to me 15 years ago and said, I'm working with this kid. Can you help me? Okay. So what is he doing? Well, he's done these songs with this guy and this guy and this guy. Help me straighten it out. So, okay, I sat down and I straightened out the catalog and got things registered. And as Anderson grew and worked with different artists, I kept maintaining his catalog. So I didn't make the decisions about what was recorded, but I simply collected the data and made sure all of the companies that collect income knew about the data. So I registered, at the time he was signed up with BMI, so I made sure everything was properly registered with BMI and that we had all the right splits. I made sure everything was registered with a company called the MLC, which is the Mechanical Licensing Collective, and they collect all the money from the DSPs.
Digital service provider. So that's your Spotify, your Apple Music, that kind of thing.
I made sure all of his songs were properly registered with a foreign sub-publisher. I made sure his songs were registered with a company called MRI, which is Music Reports. They do special direct licensing for video games, and they're not finding placements. They simply make catalogs available to certain types of users. And so I really kept tabs. One of the problems is artists are busy being artists, and they're not really concerned with the details. So, I would be constantly following Anderson to see who he was working with, and then I'd pursue, well, what is this song and what are the splits? And if I knew the publishers for the co-writers, I'd get in touch with them. Whatever I had to do to figure out how to get those songs registered properly as soon as possible. Another client of mine is a guy named David Arkenstone, who is a very famous new age composer. He's released maybe 60 albums. And so he's at the point in his life where he's able now to reclaim some of his copyrights. He hired an attorney to do the legal part of reclaiming it, but then the attorney hired me to go and figure out how to get all that information released, because stuff doesn't happen automatically in the business. You have to have someone who's keeping up on it. So I retrieved all those songs and got them out of the publishing companies they'd been in back into his. I also did some work on retrieving some of his masters. And then, oh, look, that's my client.
Yeah, she'll be here October 11th.
Anyway, she's going to be here in about 10 days. So different. One of my clients is what's called a music library, which they make music available for use. That's all they do is make music available for use in film, TV, commercials of various sorts. And they have maybe a catalog of 10,000 songs. So I keep that organized for them. And I do all the back office stuff for them. Same thing I do keeping the splits. I do their royalties, so I'm looking at the money they're getting and making sure they're being paid for stuff they should be paid for. The last statement I got from their foreign sub-publisher had $2,000 worth of money they claimed for songs that weren't even controlled by the publisher I work for. So, because I'm small and independent, I am short, but that's not what I meant. Because I'm a small company and I can focus on individual clients, I can actually look at the royalty statement and see, is this really your money? And what about this song? Why is there no money for that song when I know it's being used in this or that way? And I will say that's one thing big publishers really can't spend the time doing. If you have a catalog of several million songs, I'd say that for the majority of their writers, they're not looking to see, is this really a song that's yours?
Right.
So that's going to be something you have to think about if you're going to make a publishing deal, is can they really do what you need done?
Okay, Pat, I want to get to one last thing, and then I want to get to questions. Amy, you guys have the handheld mic ready. Can you talk about the handout that you gave them and maybe
Sure.
just say a couple things?
So, I put together this little handout of information I really hoped you would take away with you, and I didn't want you to spend time writing it down. So, as we said, there's a government name. I hope you know your government name. But this is important. If you co-write with somebody, you want to give them the right name to record as a co-writer. You want to give them your PRO affiliation. And also, I can't tell you how many writers, when I've said, what is your publishing company, or do you have a publishing company name? Oh, yeah, it's BMI. No, BMI is not your publisher. They're the PRO you're affiliated with. You want to know your writer IPI number. If you're associated with a publisher, you want to know the proper name of that publisher. I mean, you think, duh, but you'd be surprised how many people don't really have the right name. It's Universal. No, there's a more specific name than that. Okay, you want to know your publisher's IPI number if possible, although that's not so critical because I can look it up or anybody can look that up. Once a song is registered with a PRO, an ISWC number is assigned. When you're trying to follow up on money, you want to know what that number is. And I should say, if for some reason the song has been registered with either an unknown writer or an unknown publisher, it won't be assigned an ISWC number, which is why we go back to, you really should know who all the writers are and all the interested parties, the publishers, writers, whatever. And then the ISRC number is the number that's assigned to the master. And side note, when the ISRC number was developed, I was there, oh gosh. I also was around when the Mayflower came in. And the crossing of the Mississippi. But anyhow, the ISRC number was supposed to be a unique number that was assigned to a master and would stay with that master throughout its life. So if it was used on an Atlantic Records release, and then it was maybe on a compilation that Warner's released, and then maybe on something else that somebody else released, and then in a movie, that number was supposed to stay with that master. It's all screwed up. And I have a client that has their own label, and they've got a batch of ISRC numbers, And I dutifully assign those numbers to all their masters. And then they release the record through TuneCore or the Orchard. And TuneCore goes and assigns its own ISRC numbers. And so now it's got 2 numbers, and then you release it on something else and it's got 3. And the point was that the ISRC number was supposed to be embedded in the track and would always lead the user back to the owner. So, try if you can. Okay, so I wanted to list those. Try to, if you don't understand what those numbers are or how to get one, you can look it up online. Do we have time?
A couple, if you quick as you can, because I do want to get to questions. We got about 8:30.
Pardon me?
We got about 8:30, so we got about 30 minutes.
Okay, well, so the next page is a contract excerpt. And one of the things I'd really also like to get across is if you sign any kind of agreement, any kind of license, take the time to understand what you are agreeing to. Ask questions. You may feel stupid, but understand it, because if you don't, you're giving away your money. And I just put a small piece of a recent recording agreement in your handout, and I'll give you an example of why it's important. The standard recording agreement, the first thing they say as far as mechanical royalties is on what is your payment, your royalty going to be based, what rate. So I don't know if your handout's in color, but I had put it in red. So the first line says it's going to be a percentage of the minimum compulsory license rate in effect at the time of delivery. Okay, so let's take an example. Jimmy Buffett, his first records on MCA came out when the royalty rate was 2 cents. The royalty rate is now 12.4 cents. However, since his original agreement says it's going to be based on the rate in effect when the record came out, he's getting 2 cents, right? So he's missing out on 10 cents. Not only that, but if you go further down in, section C, about the middle, it tells you that that rate's going to be reduced, and it also tells you that there's certain, what we call a cap, a mechanical ceiling or cap, so that this artist is fortunate and they have 12 times. But let's go back to Jimmy Buffett. His agreement said 10 times. So that means he's going to make 10 cents instead of $1. He's going to make, if there are 10 tracks, he's going to make 20 cents instead of $1.20. In addition, this is saying that the record company won't pay more than, well, in this case, it's not going to pay more than 12 times the controlled rate. So let's say you're back to Jimmy Buffett and you have co-written with people that are not subject to what we call a reduced rate. So you're paying them at the full rate. What happens in the difference between between that 20 cents the company agreed to pay Jimmy Buffett and the amount they have to pay that Jimmy shared with other writers? Let's say 5 of the 10 songs were by non-controlled writers, not subject to any terms. All that money that was going to go to Jimmy Buffett, plus more, is getting paid out to these co-writers. And what happens to the difference? That's going to get charged against his artist royalty. I realize this sounds a little complicated and so forth, but my point is, take the time to sit down and understand what you've agreed to. And one other little point here. So if you go down to the last section, it says royalties for which no royalties are payable. And then you read along and it says, okay, non-musical material, fine. Intros, fine. More than one use of any composition. Uh-oh. So that means if you put a remix track, you're not getting paid. Then it also says anything that is shorter than 2 minutes. Well, okay, one of my clients nobody was really paid attention to this particular clause. It's the same client. And they had one track that was 1 minute and 58 seconds. So for lack of 2 seconds, or 3 seconds, they're not getting paid any mechanical royalties on that track. Now, if somebody had read this and paid attention, nobody asked me to read it beforehand, by the way. I would have raised red flags. They would have said to that artist, could you just stick an extra 3 seconds on? But instead, boing, they get no money on that. They'll get master use still, but they will not get any mechanical royalties. So my point is, take the time, sit down with a piece of, a pencil and a piece of paper, ask questions. And if you're working with a company that is not willing to answer your questions, maybe you need to think about that.
Excellent. Can we get to some questions? Okay. First of all, can we clap it up for Pat?
I hope that was helpful in some...
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, hopefully we got some questions. So let's do it.
Hello, my name is Paul. I'm a hip-hop artist known as I Am Paul J. I have a question about my publishing company because after I got it started, I tried to get it. I registered my music already as an artist with BMI, but then after I started my publishing company, I wanted to add my company to the songs that I registered, but then BMI said it's going to be a while before they reach back out to me. I haven't heard from them since the beginning of the year. So would I be better off re-registering the songs to add my publishing to it?
Can you?
Did you hear that? Mm-mm. Okay, hold on. Say it one more time. So you already have a publishing company?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, that's good. We can hear now. He has a publishing company, and you publish songs in it.
That you own, or are you assigned to a publishing company?
I started my own publishing company in the state of Ohio.
Good for you.
Yeah. All right, so you registered songs to it already.
So I registered my songs on BMI as an artist before I had my publishing company. But now I want my publishing company to be affiliated with those songs. But BMI is telling me that they're going to take a while to get back to me to do that. So would I be better off registering the song again from jump so I can have my artist, me as an artist, me as a songwriter, and me as a publisher all on the song?
Well, normally what you do is you send an email to reviseworks@bmi.com, right. And you tell them, these are my songs, and look up, as I said here, look up the ISWC number, which is the identifier, and say, here's my songs, they now are affiliated with this publishing company, and this publishing company has X shares.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
And sometimes BMI takes a minute to get back, and I find they're especially slow if you've got 30 songs you want them to do something with, and you want 10 different things to go on. But they're getting better since they were purchased about responding. Okay. But definitely, if you register the songs again, you're just confusing things.
So don't do that. Don't do that. Okay.
But if I can help you in some way, I'll give you my... I've got a card, and I'd be glad to give it to you, and I'd be glad to help you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'll see you afterwards.
Bruh. Other questions? Thank you, Amy.
Hello, my name is Imani. I'm a R&B artist here in Columbus. I was just wondering, what are some common mistakes you notice when an artist is submitting music through a publishing company?
Common mistakes publishing company?
Oh, no, maybe just like BMI or, yeah.
See, that's the thing. Do you own your own publishing?
No, it's just under my name, so in
So
BMI.
you just have writers?
Yes, just writers.
Okay. So, well, what's your... Oh, sorry. What's your question? If you're registering your works under your writers, but there's no publisher, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just some common mistakes you notice when
Well-
artists are submitting music.
So you have no publishing company. Well, okay, the good thing about BMI is that what you do when you're, okay, back up a sec. BMI works on a song having 200%. And the writer portion is 100%, needs to total 100, and the publishing share needs to total 100. However, if a writer doesn't have publishing, let's say you have 50% writer share, but you don't have a publishing company, you can write, when you register your writer share, you say you have 100, because you're adding
Right.
50 and 50. And BMI lets you do that. ASCAP does not let you do that. Does that answer your question?
I was just asking any common mistakes when an artist is submitting music through BMI? Is that-
That's pretty... No, it's just broad. It's
Oh, okay.
There's so many common mistakes. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
do you have anything specific?
No, maybe the split sheet. Like, who should we all add within that?
Who should we add on the split sheet?
Who?
Who should we add on the split sheet?
On this, well, start with, let's assume the song has a writer and has music and lyrics. Start with who composed the music and who composed the lyrics. Then you have to look around and see who else was involved that is insisting on getting a share.
Technically, it shouldn't be anybody.
Right,
Like,
but
really, right?
But these days, producers will often take a share. Sometimes management wants a share. The strangest people, the pizza guy. But I mean,
was just about to
you know,
The
as I said
engineer,
earlier,
they could ask. That's what.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
had
she's saying.
engineers ask too. Yeah, I was just wondering.
the who did?
The engineer.
Oh yeah. Ooh. Well,
They asked, do they deserve one? Your opinion.
oh. Okay. Okay. I'm. If you haven't guessed, I'm really old school. Not just because I came over on the Mayflower, but because I really believe that the people who compose the music and the lyrics should get their fair share. And the engineer should be paid for their engineering time. I'm not saying they should do it for free, but it's so hard for writers to make their money without divvying it up to every
Yes.
Tom, Dick, and
Can I
Harry.
say something? So here's the thing. When you create the song, the writer and the composer of the music, that's who is entitled, because that money is residual income. Do y'all know what that is? Residual, that money keeps coming. If you give the engineer worked on your song for that 2 hours or that 3 hours or whatever, and now they're going to get paid for the life of the song, the life of the artist plus the copyright, right? The 20
Yeah.
years, right? That just doesn't make sense to me. So I guess I'm old school too. But in my opinion, and I think that's what Pat is saying as well, the writer, the person who wrote the song, the lyrics, and the music, composed the music, that's who should be on those split sheets.
The problem is sometimes these folks get a share because maybe, not you, but one can't afford to pay what the going rate is. So, hey, let me give you a piece of the song. It's not a good idea just for exactly the reason he said. That you're giving away future income. Let's say you wrote White Christmas, you know? You don't want to be giving a share of that song. And yeah, a lot of people don't write classic songs, true, but you never know. You never know. And then you're giving that engineer a piece of the song for the life of the copyright. And in addition, going back to what I said, the more people you give shares of the song to, the harder it is to get the song placed.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for these questions. Keep them coming.
And my husband was an engineer, so okay.
Hello, I'm Jarrett. As an artist, like an independent artist, maybe writer/composer, are you left legally vulnerable interpolating even without making significant revenue off of the work?
Are you left legally vulnerable if you interpolate someone's work?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That's infringement.
That's infringement.
And, it used to be, before we had all this electronic way of tracing things, that you might interpolate something and nobody would pick it up. But now there's really, in fact, there's a chance you may write something of your own and not interpolate anything, and AI may think you did.
What if it's like a vocal sound from a different song?
It's a vocal sound from a different song.
And I wanted to use it as an instrument.
That should be your answer right there. You see how she's pausing? That's kind of your answer.
I mean, the problem is people are extremely litigious now. And if they can find a way to come after somebody else to get a dime, I don't mean to be cynical, but it's likely that it will happen. So,
But
if you can possibly do your creative work without...
I'm okay with parting with a dime. I just don't want to get, sued.
You have to clear it. Then you need to clear it.
Yeah, you have to clear it.
Got it.
There's your answer.
There are companies that do music clearance, and I've done it myself. I generally don't do it because I prefer to send people to a companies that have the connections and can, they can represent you to their friend Joe at Universal. But it's going to cost, it's going to cost you money up front, not just a piece of the new song, but up front. And B, there's a good chance they may say no. So
Thank you.
I don't mean to cramp your style. I'm sorry about that. I mean, I actually think sampling is an important, for honoring historically, I think sampling is important. And I think it's unfortunate that it's gotten to be such a difficult and expensive proposition.
Hi, my name's Cade. I play in a band called Cellar Dweller. My question kind of goes with sampling things that aren't necessarily from a musical artist. Like if I sampled from an interview or sampled from some third-party sound that doesn't really have an author, so to speak, or it's from a sample from a TV show or something like that. Or news interview? Who owns the royalties of that recording at that point? Or do I have to check it with the channel itself, the person speaking, that kind of?
There are a lot of websites now that have cleared material that you can sample and just pay a fee. The place, if you're going to do that, you need to be sure to document what you've done. If you're just, if you're sampling some wonderful old 45 that you found somewhere in a vintage store, you really need to try to clear that material. What needs to be cleared is a difficult question. because there are things that people are sampling that technically aren't really copyrightable. There are arrangements, certain types of instrumentation, but yet people are filing lawsuits and infringement claims about them. So, if you're going to use something that you didn't compose, be sure you know where you got it from and clear it, or make sure that you've been able to license it in some proper way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Well, except that
Yeah, it's hard for her to hear. Yeah. So we got the mic, and then
all those really loud rock
those
concerts I
concerts
went
she's
to
doing.
as I was coming over on the Mayflower.
Well, hello. First of all, thank you for coming and talking. I'm Woo. I was just wondering, like, I'm pretty new into like dropping music, so I've just been making it. But lately, I've been like really thinking about releasing, and I've already dropped some stuff. But I guess my question is, if I take this more seriously, like, would the most important thing be to set up a publishing company, or do you think I should? I don't know nothing about this. This is the first night I ever heard about it. So I guess I don't know. The first thing I know, this dude right here said he's got his own. I don't know how hard it was to do, but like, is that something that you think I should like look into immediately, or?
So Pat, really wondering like what to do to start out. Do you start out with a writers? Do you start out getting a publishing company? What do you do to start? That's a great question.
Well, okay, I'm not a manager. I mean, that's a whole other world, but you're the creator guy.
I mean, okay, so my opinion, definitely I would set up writers and publishing just to have it, just because. And when I set mine up with BMI in 1997, I didn't even know what BMI was. Talib Kweli, we were a few offices down in the studio, and he walked me to the office and said, "You need to talk to Kamala Gordon." And that's how I signed up. I was like you. I didn't even know what that was. I'm from Ohio. What? Right? And so what I would say is to research. She gave you, like, I think there's 5 PROs now, right?
Right,
But research, I would say look at BMI, look at ASCAP, maybe look at CSAC, and just kind of see what feels good to you, right? And then register like with one of those companies. And I would do my writers and my publishing. The publishing costs, I believe now,
Right,
like
yes.
150, or is it more now? Do you know?
I don't know what it's exactly today. It
Anybody
depends
know?
if you've signed up
Anybody
also
know?
as a writer.
How much if to sign up as a publisher? 100. It used to be, I think it's like $150. When I signed up, they were free, both. That's how old I am. So the writers is free, I believe, to sign up for a writer.
So I really thought he was asking a different question.
Okay, you got it.
I mean, yeah, if this is something you're serious about doing, if you're just writing songs for your friends or whatever, you might not want to go through all this. But if it's something you really think you want to do, and you're going to perform them or try to record them or upload them online, then yeah, pick a PRO. And ASCAP was started by songwriters. And ASCAP they weight what they, WEIGHT, they weigh what they pay you based on how many airplays the song gets. So when you get a certain number of airplays, you go to a different tier of payouts. And unfortunately, I don't really recall what that is today, what the tiers are. But for a lot of people, they don't rise to that tier. BMI is just paying people evenly for the type of use. So look at BMI, look at ASCAP, as he said, see what you like. CSAC, as I said, is invitation, because they want to be sure they're taking on members who are serious about the music business and actually are involved in it. Whereas ASCAP and BMI, I mean, if you hum songs while you're plowing the hayfield, you can join ASCAP or BMI. I'm not belittling that. That's a wonderful thing. But, you know, just they have a lot of information on how they pay out. So if you're in a major city or traveling to one, you can meet with a representative. In some cities, they hold regular events for songwriters to get together. So see who has what is of interest to you. Their payouts actually are fairly similar now these days. There's not as much difference unless you've written a classic song.
Okay. Thank you. And then really quickly, just on sampling, I just wanted to know, through your experience, have you seen an increase over time of people who made the original piece taking a bigger percentage? Has that just gotten like, has that become a more popular thing to do? Like, you think that when people use a sample, like I think Kanye just got sued like recently for a really small part of like a song where he took a small piece and put it in his, and is that becoming more of like a dangerous thing to sample because people are just going to try to take more and more? Did you see that trend, or?
Well, a trend in sampling. Well, what I will tell you is that the owner of the sampled song listens to your new song, and they'll decide how important they think what you sampled of their original material is to your new song. Is that?
Right, I mean, like over time, have you seen it become more of a bigger split with the person's original music, I guess, is what.
Well, yes, I mean, over
depends.
time, because when we started out with sampling back in the Mary J. Blige days, people didn't realize what it was going to turn into.
Mm-hmm.
And now they realize, for some old catalogs, for example, one of my clients is Bridgeport Music, and they've got a George Clinton catalog. Okay, well, a lot of the George Clinton catalog is making money just because of sampling. So, you know, this now is their only way they're making money.
Gotcha, yeah.
So,
We'll
you know,
what
they're
can
going to
yeah.
get what they can from
Yeah.
you, so to speak.
Yeah, let's give one more.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think we
Thank
got
you so
one more
much.
question.
Okay. Did I answer your question? You know, like you might find some small company that might be thrilled for a very reasonable amount to let you sample. Just depends what you've.
All right, I think we got one back here.
This is more of a personal question for you. Because you've been in the music business for so long, how were you able to, because I know you have seen a lot of unhappy faces as well, and not just, you know, people smiling. How did you maintain your character and your integrity through everything?
Oh, thank you. Well, when I worked at Universal, I wasn't so good at maintaining my integrity, I'll say. Meaning, I soon realized that the record companies were taking, they were taking advantage of what people didn't know. So if you didn't know to ask for something, okay, they weren't telling you. So for a while there, I started having secret meetings after work with artist management and kind of explaining to them, well, you know, don't tell who told you, but you could ask for this and this and this. And then I realized that I couldn't sustain that, A, because there were too many artists who needed help, and B, because I was probably going to get fired if anyone found out. So when I left Universal, I breathed a sigh of relief, and I said, you know what? From now on, I'm helping artists. I'm helping writers. And that's what I'm going to do. And because I'd been fortunate enough to set aside some income, I can afford to help people, and some of them I don't charge them anything just because I want to help them. And I've been fortunate to find clients that appreciate my work. So that's kind of how it's gone. Did I answer your question? But while I was at Universal, it was very difficult, and it was hard for me, where do I draw the line and say I'm not doing this anymore?
And that's how we met, because she helped me, because I had absolutely no clue.
Yeah, I didn't have to call him or tell him anything, but I had to.
And with that, can we give Pat a round of applause, guys?